Welcome to the Fight Monsters podcast. Today we're talking to real people fighting real monsters.
Fight monsters, fight monsters. You're listening to the Fight Monsters podcast.
Hello and welcome to this today's edition of the Fight Monster Show. I'm your host, Steven Norberg, and today we have a guest, a friend of mine and fellow root beer enthusiast, among other things, Brant. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks a lot, Steve. This has been amazing. We've been planning this for a while, and I'm just so happy that we're able to connect.
Yeah, me too. I'm glad it worked out. I'm glad that you're willing to chat with me for a while and let me ask you a bunch of questions.
Oh man, people like talking about themselves, so this is gonna be really easy it's gonna be a lot easier for me than it is gonna be for you.
Yeah,
I feel like maybe people with my personality like to talk about themselves a lot. Maybe others don't, but
that's
I
right.
don't know.
And not to give too much away, I know you've got some background in sales, so I imagine that is a little bit helpful.
Oh,
I
oh yeah,
struggled with
it's
that
totally helpful.
side of it with Thunder Beast for a little while till I figured out the right way to talk about myself and not feel bad about pushing my agenda. But
Oh man,
yeah.
yeah, sales. I don't know, man, that's a whole nother monster in itself. But it's definitely something that really teaches you how to interact with so many different kinds of people because you kind of have to get along with everybody, right? Because no one not or else they're not going to buy anything from you.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something that I really appreciate. I'm happy I'm not doing it anymore, but something I appreciate.
Yeah. Yeah, so in talking about fighting some monsters, I know you've had your share of them, and I'd love to hear
Yeah,
about a
absolutely.
monster that you've been fighting or thinking about recently.
Yeah, so I've really been thinking about racism, specifically towards Black Americans in the United States. And one thing that I guess when I define it to myself, it's more prejudice that people can treat others based off the way they look without even thinking about being racist,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
So a perfect example is um, when a so and so person, maybe a white person, excuse me, is just interacting with someone who is of a different race or of a different color, they might treat them differently just based on how they look, but not really are blatantly racist, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And and so that's where that can that's really impacted me just in my life, and it's been a monster that you just don't even realize until you get older, and you're like, wow, I could have maybe had different opportunities or something in that nature if those things didn't happen.
Wow. So, would you say that when you were younger, you were maybe a little bit less aware of the way that prejudice and racism affected your life, and as you've gotten older, you can look back and see that it was actually a lot more tangible and had a stronger impact on you than you thought? Or I'm curious, kind of how that unfolded for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you're young, at least me, when I was younger, I was way more oblivious to a lot of it, right? Because,
Yeah.
when you're 10, 11 years old, you don't notice when a teacher is treating you differently than somebody else. At least I didn't. I was a kid, right?
Yeah.
As you grow up and you go back and reflect on some of these experiences, you talk to your parents and maybe you talk about maybe conversations that happened behind closed doors that they didn't want to expose you to right away. Things like that can really start to educate you on things. And when you start to have kids of your own, you start to think about times when you were a kid when racism or prejudice came and how you want to help them avoid that as they grow up. Maybe make them more aware and not oblivious
Yeah.
to to it. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm sure that's a much different lens to view the world through and view your memories through too. Yeah.
absolutely.
Um, are there some particularly powerful moments or memories that you have that you were really confronted with racism and how it affected your life, or were there some moments that the light bulb came on and you really realized what was happening?
Um, I think I have one story when I was a kid where I really realized that I'm black, and that I guess I'll just go to the story. So I'm 11 years old. I have a really really good friend, and we hang out every day. We had the same homeroom. We're in middle school, elementary school, and so talked all the time, etc. And one day he just stopped talking to me, just cold turkey, did not talk to me one bit at all. And I'm like, what is going on here? You're my best friend.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be friends, and I'm friends with his friends, and he's friends with my friends who weren't connected. And so every single day I would just try to go near him, and he just wouldn't come near him. So months go on down the line, and then uh, he then says, I then say, "Hey man, what's up? How's it going? Like we haven't spoken in a while. Like, do you not like me anymore? Like what happened?" And then he says, "Get away from me, you effing N-word," at 11 years old,
Wow.
and he's around my age,
Yeah.
and so that really put me in a situation to be like, "Wow, this is a real thing," because nothing that blatant or has ever happened to me before,
Yeah.
and so when you when that happens to you, it really makes you kind of realize, wow, I guess maybe I can't trust people who look like him, or you can't. You have to treat those people differently. Maybe not let them in your circle as much, or not be as open because you don't want to get hurt, things in
Right.
that nature. But
Right.
as far as blatant goes, when I really realized that that was a black man, then I think that was the moment.
Yeah. Was that the first time someone had called you that or used that term around you, or maybe just the most powerful?
Outside of in terms of endearment,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
So I've had other black friends use that word around me, and I think that's fine, right? And especially when you're a kid. But as a hate term, absolutely, first time. I'll never forget it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, what was, if you can remember what was going through your mind, like how did that make you feel? Like, were there certain emotions that it came up, or in the aftermath of that, do you feel like you had certain things you had to navigate and process?
Yeah, I think one thing that really hits home for me is confusion. I was confused about one, why would he tell me that? And two, like, did he always feel this way? It's kind of like when your girlfriend breaks up with you or something, and you never knew it was coming. Um, and that's how I felt, was confused. A little bit of sad. I wasn't angry at all, but definitely just sad and confused.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did did that kind of change the way that you viewed other friends at school after that? And as you got older, did you have to guard yourself a little bit to make sure that didn't happen again? Or I imagine that was a pretty significant experience of a friend changing so suddenly and interacting with you in that way.
Yeah. Um, it definitely did change a lot in my view of the world. So rewind, where that happened to me was in a suburb of Atlanta, Georgia.
Mm.
So we were living in Atlanta at the time. I'm originally from Minnesota. We lived in Minnesota my whole life before then. So again, from 0 to about 11 years old, I'm in Minnesota.
Yeah.
And so Minnesota's very, very white. Not many black people live in Minnesota, especially outside of the Twin Cities, Minneapolis and St. Paul.
Yeah.
So I'm very used to white people in living in that area. But when that happened, I distanced myself from all white people. All my friends were black from that moment on, especially for the next 3 to 5 years. I can't name one close. I think I've had white acquaintances at that time, but I can't name one close white friend that I let get that close to me until ah, senior year in high school.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
junior, senior year in high school. Yeah, I think when I moved back to Minnesota, so we were in Minnesota from age 11 to age 16. We were in Georgia, excuse me, from age 11 to age 16. And so um, when we moved back to Minnesota is when I started having white friends again.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it definitely did.
Yeah. Do you think the move was the main catalyst for that, or were there other things that um, maybe spurred that change? Was it conscious, or did it just sort of happen after moving?
I think the move was a big catalyst because I wasn't in the South anymore, so I thought these were different kinds of white people.
Mm.
And so I think that was one big thing. And then also in Georgia, you have to understand Atlanta metro area, the Atlanta metro is one of the largest black populations in the country. So you can self-segregate yourself very, very easily.
Mm.
You can't do that in Minnesota. At least I couldn't. There, I
Yeah.
mean, at the school I went to, at the you there was just no way around interacting with more white people. But in Georgia, you can, at least in the schools that I went to an all-black school in Georgia. I went to a school where there was about half blacks, half white. So it's very, very easy to self-segregate. But
Yeah.
I think that move was definitely the catalyst for sure.
Yeah. In Atlanta, would you say a lot of your friends, like your inner circle of friends, your black friends, did they also mostly spend time with other black friends, or did a few of them have white friends or friends of other backgrounds, races, and was it kind of odd when that happened?
Um, they definitely had I definitely it was definitely very, very the white kids hang out with the white kids, the black kids hung out with the black kids. Um, but there were always, I don't know what you want to call them. There were always a few kids, there were always a few black kids that hung out in the white circles and a few white kids that hung out in the black circles. And
Yeah.
they were okay.
Yeah.
We kind of considered them, I don't know, the Eminem of our of our circle, I guess. But yeah, it was it took a lot for white kids to be able to hang out in with us though. Like when they first like when a new white kid came to school, I'll never forget he was from Belgium. And so I don't know if maybe because he was an immigrant or what have you, but he just hung out with us. He didn't hang out with the white kids, although he um, was white.
Yeah.
But I think there was a common bond of him being made fun of for his accent or what have you,
Interesting.
and then us accepting him for that. And just,
Yeah.
hey, you're different, we're different. Let's just be different together.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. In thinking back to that period in your life, do you think that if you could, if you could go back and talk to your younger self, then that you would try to act differently or interact with other people differently, or do you think that you wouldn't necessarily change a lot of things based on your experience now as an adult?
as an adult, I don't know if I would change anything just because it makes me who I am today, but
Yeah.
I definitely would tell my younger self to kind of be more aware of your surroundings, um, for sure, and also protect yourself more.
Yeah.
Because if I guess if I protected myself as a younger kid, those experience would have that experience and other experiences growing up would have never happened.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Now, in thinking about, obviously, in light of this podcast, this show, and the topic of facing monsters and racism certainly being one of the biggest monsters, I'm curious if you were to look at it in that light, what kind of effect you would say it had on your life. Did you feel like there was this um, maybe evil entity or something that caused fear or that caused harm or oppression in your life, or is it more of um, just something that affected relationships and how you view the world?
Yeah, so I think that situation and many other situations growing up have affected the way I view the world. But I also think that as far as decisions that I might have made differently, I think that definitely could have affected it. I mean, you got to think if if that never happened to me, I might have still had a bunch of white friends, and I still had black friends growing up at that time too. So
Yeah.
there were other people could have shaped my entire worldview, and who I am today. Um, there might have been opportunities that I could have had that I just don't didn't know about. Um, so yeah, I guess I don't know what I really missed out on,
Yeah.
but um, yeah.
Yeah. So the next question is mostly based on some personal experience, so may not apply. But I've noticed that in some ways in my life that I've been um, just hurt by other people. That I tend to watch people very, very carefully and kind of test to make sure they're safe before maybe I'll open up or engage in a friendlier way. And I'm curious if this experience as a child has caused you to start to read people and look at people, especially white folks, to try to get a gauge on whether or not they're safe before you interact with them.
I think it all depends on where I'm at. To be completely honest with you, I think nowadays I try to be friendly to everybody,
Yeah.
and definitely no matter who they are, or where they come from. But I think back then, I definitely looked at people. I guess I just didn't trust any white people at that time.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, because I mean, you got to think like perfect, perfect example. There was this teacher who, uh, I, long story short, I took a nap in class. Probably shouldn't have taken a nap in class. I, well, what I did was wrong. Um, I'll put it that way. But so they call my mom up to school. My mom is she's not white passing, but she's very fair skinned for a black woman.
Mm.
And so I'm not sure if the teacher thought that my mom was something different, a different race or what have you. But as the teacher's telling my mom about me sleeping in class, I don't know if this slipped up. She's like, "Your black son slept did something," and
Mm.
that's all I heard. And then my mom just blew up and said, "You need to go into the car."
Wow.
So, um, little things like that. It's like th those kind of microaggressions. I don't know if that's a micro. I think that's an aggression, a
Straight up
macroaggression.
aggression. Yeah.
But those things like that. I mean, it makes you think. Okay, if that teacher thinks that thinks something about me, would what do all the other teachers think? You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
And is this why is this why maybe I don't ask for help in school? Well, maybe wouldn't. I definitely never asked that teacher for help, but looking back, is like, is that why I didn't ask for help from teachers? It's just because that underlying distrust of them, or things like that. So it, yeah. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But
Yeah, I'm curious to hear some more of your story of after moving back to Minnesota and um, high school and then college, and
yeah,
how relationships evolved and how your view of the world changed. Do you feel like you were more aware of prejudice in college, and were there any incidents that happened that really were eye opening for you?
um, I think growing up, kind of moving on to high school to college, I I thought leaving Georgia, I wouldn't have to deal with that kind of stuff anymore. But you learn that with different people, racism and prejudice, I guess, forms differently. So, where in Georgia, I felt like the racism is a lot more blatant. People just didn't care about what they thought,
Mm.
but about what other people thought about them and what their racism was. You gotta mind you, this is the early 2000s. I'm not that old, so
Yeah.
this but this isn't 1960s. This is 2003, 2002. This is very early 2000s. But I think in Minnesota it was very um, you don't notice it off the bat until later on. And I think in Minnesota people, at least, and I'm generalizing here,
Yeah.
everybody's different, but I think in Minnesota here it was more uh, you just couldn't tell, and people I think tried not to be racist, but this is kind of where the prejudice comes in. You got a lot of, hey, can what's up, dog? But no one they would never use the word dog outside of a conversation with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, or what's up, home? Like you would get those kind of things, which are kind of, I guess, kind of light and playful.
Yeah.
But you get other situations where you and your black friends are have guns from police officers pointed at you for no apparent reason, um, just for throwing a football in a park. And somebody called from a window. I don't know who called, but somebody said, "Hey, those kids have guns. You should go check it out." And so about 4 or 5 cop cars show up and with big guns. I don't know what they're named. I'm not a gun guy, but just pointed at us.
Yeah.
And so you got to think like, wow, that was aggressive, and you're like, okay, this happens everywhere. Just doesn't happen in Georgia. This happens everywhere. So it's yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely like like you look back and it's like, wow, I could have died that day. And you look back, okay, 2 months later, like you're you're getting arrested for doing dumb stuff, but you're like, wow, I could have died that day as well.
Yeah.
So it's you kind of think about you kind of think about it and you try not to, but yeah, I'm definitely rambling here, but that's definitely what's on the top of my head.
That's right, man. It's your story. You ramble all you want. I would love to go back though because I think that story is pretty powerful. You said you were playing football with your friends and the cops rolled up, and someone had called them saying you had guns. And
Yeah,
could you tell us a little bit more about that? How old were
yeah,
you and where you were, and just what that was like to experience that like right before your eyes, and to have the uncertainty and just this crazy experience unfolding before you.
yeah. So it's me and about 5 other guys. Not all of us were black. One of us was white, and another one of us was Mexican. He was actually half Mexican, half Cambodian. Um, but he definitely presented more Mexican. But however, most of us people of color, about 5 or 6 of us, and we're all just went to the park. We're all on the varsity football team at the local high school, and 16 years old, going into our senior year in high school. It was probably around the springtime,
Yeah.
and we we just played football. We like to throw footballs around, run routes, throw football around in the park. So we got in the car, took 2 cars. It's not like we all piled up in one car. Some of us were in one car, the other half of us were in another car. Um, Pulled up at the park and started throwing the football around. As we're in the parking lot, um, walking towards the grassy area in the park.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, about 3 or 4 cop cars just kind of roll up and um, lights on. They come out of the car, says stop whatever you're doing, stay still, don't move. Um, Vividly remember one guy. He opened the cop one police officer. He opened up the driver's side door or passenger side door. I forget, but took out this big gun. Took 2 hands to grab it. I'm not sure how big the gun. I'm not sure what kind of gun it was, but you had to hold it with two
It's a
hands.
two-handed gun. Yeah.
And one of the two-handers, and pointed it straight at me.
Wow.
So I'm staring at this gun, and my some of my other friends are like, "What the hell is going on?" One of my friends is crying, and they're just like, "What did we do? What happened?" They searched all of us, patted us down. Put one of us got really upset. It wasn't me, but one of us got really upset. He started cursing at the cops, and um, that cop kind of grappled him to the ground and put him in the back of the cop car and put him in handcuffs. And it's just really traumatic experience for all of us. It's something that I don't think any of us are ever going to forget. But we sat there for maybe about an hour as they asked questions to all of us. Where were we that day? What did we do? Do you have guns? Where are the guns? Just a bunch of questions. And eventually, they let us all go. Nobody went to jail that day or got shot or got hurt, thank God.
Yeah.
But yeah, um, few days later, I learned that somebody told their parents. I never told my mom about the situation because I knew how upset she would be,
Yeah.
and I knew how much she would have gone bonkers. So to this day, she doesn't know about this happened.
Doesn't. Okay.
But some other kids told their parents,
Yeah.
and lo and behold, that somebody called the cops on us and said there was a gun in our car, and
Wow.
yeah, that situation is what happened.
Yeah. So it sounds like a pretty long interaction. If they had you there for about an hour. Um,
Yeah, it was a really long
yeah.
interaction.
Did you? What were the main things that you're feeling during that experience? Was there a lot of fear, or were you just kind of amped up on kind of adrenaline of everything that was happening, or what was going through your mind while you were
Oh,
experiencing
I
that?
was terrified.
Yeah.
I thought I was gonna die,
Yeah.
to be completely honest. I
Yeah.
didn't think I was gonna. I mean, especially when he first came out and he took the gun out and started and put it in his hands, and um, I I was just replaying that moment. Like I stared at him, he stared at me, and I stopped. I was just frozen in fear.
Yeah.
Um, but it wasn't like don't shoot. I didn't say a word. Like I was literally just paralyzed, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
Um, and so, young kid 16, I I didn't know what to do in that situation. So I just tried to be as calm as possible. Um, and didn't yell or I just wanted to cooperate. I just wanted him to go, to be
Yeah.
completely honest with you.
Right. Right. Given that this was in the early 2000s, right? That you experienced this.
This was 2008.
2008. Yeah.
Yeah.
Had you at that point had you, any of your friends or had you heard of many other interactions like that? I know kind of in today's days it's a lot more publicized and there are a lot of shootings and murders with police and um, that is highly publicized and I'm curious
Yeah.
if that was something was you were very aware of back then or it was less commonly talked about among your friends.
It's something that you're always aware of because there some our friends the this is suburb of St. Paul. So right outside of St. Paul, we're probably about 20 minutes away from where Philando Castile was killed. But this
Okay.
was years before,
Yeah.
years before. But you hear about that stuff all the time about police officers just heckling young black kids in that suburb.
Wow.
But you don't, I guess shame on me, but you don't realize that it can happen to you until it does.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, you hear about it all the time. One of my friends, he wasn't at that particular area, but he was put in the back of a cop car and he did absolutely nothing wrong. They were very, very similar situation, believe it or not. They were just playing pickup basketball on an outdoor court. And I'm not sure why the cops showed up or what happened, but he's like, we weren't smoking, drinking, we were literally just playing pickup basketball. And um, next thing you know, I'm in the back of a cop car.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know what was wrong with that police department, but it it definitely was not a good situation.
Right. How long was it before you went back and played football again, in a park with your friends, or did you just stop playing after that?
After that moment, we always played at the school. We never
Yeah.
went to a public park ever again.
Really.
No.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's not like I didn't have a car or anything like that, so and I wasn't the one planning like and these are non-sanctioned practices because you can only practice during certain times of the year at in I'm not sure if the rules have changed, but you couldn't have a coach there or do anything like that. So we just all just
Hmm.
wanted to practice. So from that point on, we just went to the school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you feel a lot more safe at the school? Was it that people knew who you were, that you felt like you kind of belonged there, or is that why you chose to play at the school?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I guess you have this idea whereas like the cops aren't gonna pull up guns at the school. I don't know. Maybe they would, maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
But at least you think that they're not gonna go to a school and pull what they did, at that park.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. And this is like the park that we went to. It's, I mean, we're talking. It's in the suburbs. It's not.
Yeah.
This wasn't some grungy hood park where this is the park where moms take their kids to go on the seesaw.
Yeah.
This is this kind
Okay.
of that's
Wow.
that kind of park. It's a very quiet area of that suburb. Um, so yeah, it's crazy that that happened there, but yeah, it did.
Yeah. Did that change how you felt around police officers after that? Did you have a response if you saw like a cop car driving by or police officer somewhere, or did it not affect all your interactions after that?
Oh yeah, I've always ever since that moment to this day, I'm terrified to get stopped by the police.
Yeah.
Terrified.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I never I want to limit my interactions with police officers as much as possible.
Yeah.
Um, and that moment, when that moment is very, very a big reason why, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, I would, and I've gotten stops for speeding tickets, and I literally, I'm 10 and 2, hands on the wheel. I
Yeah.
try to change my accent to sound as to limit all slang. Any, my license is ready. It is. I have a whole. You can ask my wife. She's been with me a few times when I've been
Yeah.
stopped, and yeah, it's a thing. I
Yeah.
It's just absolutely petrified because I don't want to get. You just don't want to. I don't want that situation to have overblown. Because think about if that. Think about if I had a friend, one of our friends that was there. He just went off. He's like, we don't have any guns. Leave us alone. Like he just went off. And you got to um think about the if that police officer maybe just had a really bad day that day, or just wasn't thinking, or what have you, and shot that kid, right?
Yeah.
And that could have I could have got shot. Like if there were different people if there was a different police officer, we would have we could have died.
Yeah.
Thank God we didn't.
Right.
But I mean, this is pre-smartphone. I mean, the iPhone came out in 2007, but most people didn't have a camera phone at that time, so no
Yeah.
one's recording this
Right.
situation or anything like that. Um, but yeah, yeah. So I always, yeah,
Yeah. What was the progression like from there? You know, you mentioned you went to college and then post college, getting into the business world. I know you worked in sales for a long time and did some other things.
yeah.
Do you feel like that your awareness of prejudice and racism um, was more apparent in the business world? Were there times that you really felt like you were confronted with the stark reality that you're a black man and people saw you as that and treated you differently, or did it blend
Yeah.
in a little easier in business? How was that for you?
Yeah. So I'll take a few steps back from starting school. I
Yeah.
mean, from business, but in college, it was I had I went to a school in really rural Minnesota. And I you would think that the professors there would be um, kind of like I don't know professors in South Georgia. It was totally different.
Mm.
Yes, there were a lot of conservative people there, but that doesn't mean that they were racist. They were some of the most loving people you would have ever met. But just want to give a shout out to University of Minnesota.
Nice, nice.
um, but no, some of the most loving people you have ever met. And yeah, I experienced racism in that small town, absolutely, but um, never in the way that I I it I think it was more not knowing than a racism, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah,
Um,
it does.
but in the business world, it's like a different story. So I started my career in Fargo, North Dakota. And I would always tell people that there aren't enough black people in Fargo for people to be overtly racist. It's 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 just not. It's like 0.02 population. So you have to understand that my wife included, we are some of the first black people that people have interacted with on a prolonged basis,
Really?
in that city.
Wow.
Absolutely. Yeah. So my wife in particular, she started her career in Fargo as well, and some of her coworkers said that I've never spoken but a few words to a black person, outside of you.
Yeah.
So we're people's first black experience in Fargo, North Dakota,
Wow.
in 2000. This is 2014, 2015. You got to think there's that's crazy.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but nevertheless, so um, I had I I was definitely my first job coming out of school. I'm not going to name the company, but we have a retreat where everybody from the zone, in the area, they go to, we all go to a cabin or whatnot. We talk about what we're going to do for the year and how we're going to, make the company money. Um, so there's alcohol involved, and people, they went to the alcohol liquor store, and they bought a 40 ounce, um, and they kept it in the paper bag, and guess who they gave it to? So,
Wow.
and they asked me to drink it so they can take pictures of me.
Really?
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So, uh, yeah, that I didn't know what to do at that point in time. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I tried to laugh it off, and because you know what I mean, these are your coworkers. You don't want to be, at least in me, I'm very non-confrontational. Um, I didn't want to get fired, or I don't know. So I let them take the pictures of me. I
Right.
looking back, I wouldn't have done
Yeah.
that, um, now, but it's my first job out of college. I didn't know what to do.
Right.
But
You don't want to rock the boat, I guess. You don't
yeah,
want
you don't
them
want
to
to rock the
make it
boat.
harder on you.
But
No.
yeah. So I mean, you have that. There's there was another big moment where, not a big moment, but um, there was a big diversity push, and yeah, I'm one of the hiring managers on my first job.
Okay.
And so there's this big diversity push, and there was this black lady who interviewed, and I didn't get to interview her, but um, one of my coworkers, he pulls me in the office as soon as he walks out, he's like, "Hey, we interviewed." As soon as she walked out, he's like, "Hey, we interviewed one of, a black woman." And I saw the black woman walk out. He's like, "We're not going to give her the job, but it's not because she's black. It's because she's not what's best for the job." So like little things like that,
Yeah.
and I don't know. I think, again, I think these people, they're not. I don't want to call them, um, I don't know, KKK racist. They're not that. That's not what they are. I
Yeah.
think it's more of a lack of understanding, or just people just. I think they wanted to relate to me and they didn't know how.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have people like, I got a haircut, and I had my hair was a lot nicer back than it is now. I'm balding a little bit, but um, but a lady wanted to touch my hair, and like little things like that. I think they're just trying to learn and trying to relate to me as much as they can, but they just didn't understand how. And
Right.
that's, yeah, I have a book of situations, but it's yeah, um, that was my first professional experience, and then I got to go work for Microsoft, which I think they did an amazing job with diversity. I think they tried as best as they could. Microsoft
Yeah.
hired about, um, uh, I think they had about 80% of the black population working for Microsoft. And
Yeah.
if I had to guess, it'd be right
Yeah.
around that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm interested in asking, kind of from your perspective now, going back to Fargo, if there's anything that you would say to maybe people in Fargo or somewhere where they don't have many black friends or have had very little interactions with other people, um, and there's obviously some amount of awkwardness and ignorance, but also some prejudice. Is there something that you would recommend for, um, how a white person could interact um, with a black person if they don't really know what to do and they want to be friendly and nice, but they're afraid that they'll say or do the wrong thing?
Yeah, I think that one thing that people could do is just kind of be open to learning and try not to just be yourself, I guess at the end of the day, right?
Hmm.
And try not to be somebody that you're not. Um, you gotta, I mean, you don't know how many what's up dogs or how many times that, hey, can I say the N word, that I've gotten in Fargo. It's
Yeah,
more than I can count on two hands.
yeah,
Um, especially I can count more than I've been asked more than at least 10 times from 10 different people, can I say the N word, in North Dakota.
wow,
Um, yeah, so just don't try to relate to me, or don't try to relate to black people in that way, because you probably don't do that to your white friends. But just treat us as if we're people and not kind of um, I don't know, not a foreign, you know what I mean? Not somebody who's foreign or an alien, somebody who's not a human, I guess.
right.
Just we're regular people, just trying to live just like you are, trying to figure it out. So that would be my suggestion.
Yeah,
And
I,
I think
I
people will be surprised how much we have in common.
right.
Yeah.
I want to bring up something that I've learned from you over the last few years. I guess when we first met, I was interested in meeting someone from Fargo because I had just gone through Fargo, and it was kind
Yeah.
of a unique place to be. But as we were talking, this was in the last couple of years where things have been pretty hard for me with my lawsuit and me fighting my own monsters and the struggles I had. And there are a few times you really went out of your way just to support me. You offered to help do like free sales calls when I needed to move some product and I was short, and you did a lot just to be really kind, and it's got me thinking about how I think kindness is one of the most underrated qualities in fighting monsters and making friends and being a good human being. And I'm curious if you have thoughts about your experience, if there are just ways that kindness can really go a long way to bring down walls and empower people and um, eliminate some of the problems.
Oh, thank you so much. I sincerely appreciate that. Um, I do have one really good situation where um, one of my neighbors, he, I needed two recommendations to get into college,
Mm,
and one of my neighbor, I had horrible grades in college. I mean, in high school, I did not do well at all, and
yeah,
I'm not ashamed of it. I did well in college. I graduated.
yeah,
It's fine.
nice.
But yeah, I was playing football at the time, and I think that's the only reason they were going to accept me to go to school there is because I played football. And so I had two people stick out their necks for me. My admissions counselor, basically, I don't know what she did to get me into that school, but she stuck her neck at him. She stuck her neck out for me, and when I had no clue that she did, but when I graduated, um, she gave me a letter and said, "Hey, I fought my tail off to get you into this school, and you proved everybody wrong." Um, because this is a small satellite campus in the University of Minnesota. There's probably 2,000 kids in the entire school, but about 600 of those kids are on campus. So you have to think about how small this satellite school is for University of Minnesota. Everybody knows everybody at that school.
Yeah,
Um, and so I guess, yeah, she did what she had to do. But then I also got a really, really good recommendation from um from a neighbor, and really, really nice guy. Lo and behold, um as I've grown up, I've learned that we are on the complete opposite of the political spectrum. So you
mm,
have to understand, like, they're nice, there are great, nice people everywhere, no
yeah,
matter what they believe in, who they are. Um, they wrote one of the best recommendation letters you could ever read, and they got me into school, and I would have never met my wife. I would have never been where I am today if I did not have that. Um, so just really just random acts of kindness that I did not deserve,
Yeah.
and yeah, they did that. So I'm still forever thankful for those two people.
Yeah. Wow. That's cool, man. I love hearing stories of kindness, and obviously I like experiencing kindness because it definitely has wind in my sails and makes life a lot better. And I think that's one of the key themes with fighting monsters, having this experience where there's something that's just oppressive and daunting and trying to crush or consume you that can silence you. That's something that stuck out in your story about when you're playing football and the cops kind of pulled up the guns and came
Yeah,
after you, and you felt like you couldn't really talk, or you're afraid to say anything, and if you say the wrong thing, what might happen, but you want to defend yourself, but your voice is just silenced and taken away. And I think it's really interesting to think about how it seems like a universal theme that happens when we face monsters, when we face these sources of adversity that try to silence us and crush us, and that just simply being able to find your voice and tell your story is powerful, which
yeah.
is what the podcast is about. So I appreciate you sharing your voice and sharing some of your story and telling us about that. But I don't know where I was going with that, but I just wanted to echo that there's power in
No,
that. And I think that telling the truth about what happened to you is significant and important.
no, I totally agree, man. Yeah, thank you for having me here. And I mean, the reason I tell my story is I just hope that somebody can pick it up and take an action on something, right? And
Yeah.
if it changes somebody's mind on something, or um, causes somebody to be more kind to others, then, man, if that's just one person, it was worth it. So,
Yeah. Right.
um, yeah, I appreciate that. As cliche as it sounds, it's true.
That's right. If you would, I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about how the adversity in your life, how the prejudice and racism that you faced that shaped you your entire life, if it's helped you grow in maybe a few ways that now you're thankful that you have that growth. Obviously, the injustice and the hard things that happen to you are there, but sometimes growth comes out of these really unfair and difficult situations. And do you feel like there's some that in some ways you're a better and stronger person now because of it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think like I think I've grown immensely as a person in spite of all those things. I think that one thing is that I've learned is that if you approach everyone with kindness and love, that no matter what they believe, it's going to be really hard for somebody to be mean to somebody who's nice to them. I don't know. Like you got to be a really bad person to to, to smack somebody who's trying to give you a hug, you know?
It's a whole new level.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a whole nother like you got to be a horrible person for that to happen. I'm sure there's people out there like that, but it's few and far between, right?
Yeah.
So just truly believe that, and um, there have been there was this one time where I had this roommate, and he's from South Korea, and when moving to the U.S., he was really afraid of kind of the hip hop culture, and I guess he associated black people with that culture.
Mm.
Um, and so he wasn't. By the time we were roommates, he chose me. Like he wasn't afraid. He wasn't afraid of
Yeah.
me, but but he had to. He was just like all props to him. He was just the nicest person in the world, to where everyone just gravitated to him. And then he learned over time that like the stereotypes about America as a whole and Black America aren't true. And I don't know. I don't know where I was trying to go with that, but he was just he's just an amazing guy. But he basically um, through his kindness, I think that he learned that Black people aren't bad at all.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, there's something powerful in relationships and really just getting to know other human beings and being honest
yeah,
and like embracing some of the awkwardness that comes out of like interacting and creating a friendship with someone who's different than you. That I think that does more to bring down walls than almost anything else. Just
Abs-
true friendship is
Absolutely.
powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. You gotta like people watch those Disney movies, like, man, it's that stuff's real. Like the the Glory Road and the Remember the Titans, like those Disney, like I know it's definitely dramatized. It's
Yeah.
not, but I mean, those you put people in situations to where they have to build relationships together and learn about who they are past their skin color and past their whatever makes them them, and really just kind of figure out who they are at their core, at their spirit, at their soul. Then like you'll learn to love some people, man. It's,
Yeah. That's true. That's true. I feel like in our well, certainly in like the last few years, there's so much happening on social media, and it sounds like everyone wants to have an opinion and wants to say their take on what's happening, especially with inequality and racial issues, and I feel like something that we can all probably get better at, that definitely white people can get better at, is learning to listen. And for
mm,
me, I've been trying to embrace the fact that I'm a little bit of an awkward person sometimes, but I'm trying to do it in a hopefully in a charming and positive way.
yeah,
But just knowing that if you um, lead with kindness and love, and that you listen a lot more than you talk, that I think that's a recipe that can't but lead to growth and good things. And I feel like there's a lot of challenges that happen when we try to talk more than we listen, and that can do more harm than good. And I was curious, just your thoughts on that, and on if you have experiences of people trying to intervene in negative situations with prejudice, especially white people, that maybe they did more harm than good because they wanted to intervene or help, but they didn't do it in a positive way.
yeah. I think I 100% agree with you that in all situations, I think we're all a part of a group. Every person is a part of a group that has an advantage in some way, right? And if we listen to the people who are disadvantaged, I totally think that we can definitely be able to make progress because we'll have a better understanding of where they're coming from. Like I think every American has an advantage to do better in a capitalistic society than maybe somebody in another country.
Mm.
Um, it's because you're in America. I think every relatively, right? There are some people who just have it bad, but I'm brushing really long brush strokes here. Don't. I'm not sure if this is going to be posted where there's some comments, but don't kill me in the comments. You know what I mean? And so I think there are situations where we all have an advantage, and we just listen to people who are disadvantaged. There can definitely be something there. But um, to answer your question, I think yeah. So I think that there was one situation where um, really great people they 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 realized I was they realized I was interning at my city's chamber of commerce,
Mm.
and they had no clue, right? Like they I guess they had no clue kind of where I was sitting politically or anything like that. I truly think that they were just trying to help. Um, but um, they were part of the local Republican Party, and so that I think they just really wanted to give me a job and to help me kind of, I guess, grow as a human being. And so I had no clue that the Chamber of Commerce was like the Republican, uh, I don't know, happy place. I had no clue. I
Yeah.
didn't know that there were Chamber of Commerce rooms. I didn't know they were synonymous. But at the time. So they're like, hey, we really need more young black men in the Republican Party. We totally think you would be great for this. And uh, I don't know. I just don't think that was helpful to tell me that the Republican Party needs more black people in there, and we really think
Yeah.
that we need to you need to join our local chapter.
Right.
I just don't think that was helpful. But
Yeah.
um, I think that's just one small situation. But again, beautiful people. I totally think that that it came from a place of love. I just think that maybe if they asked me, "Hey, what are you trying to do, and what do you want to be?"
Yeah.
and then from there help me get there, I think that'd have been more helpful rather than telling me to join their political party. And at that time, I was very apolitical, so I wasn't joining anyone's party.
Right. That's right. Yeah, it's definitely interesting how making assumptions almost always will get us into trouble one way or another, and simply
Oh
getting
yeah,
to know people and learn from their experiences is,
yeah,
a good path to be on. Yeah,
yeah. You're definitely true. They're
yeah,
just talking to a kid just taking an internship. I thought it would look good on a resume.
that's right.
So, so yeah,
Yeah, great, man. Well, I've really enjoyed our conversation, and thanks so much for
absolutely.
being on here and chatting with me. And I'm curious if you have any questions for me now that I've been asking you all this stuff. Anything you want to know about my opinions or my life or anything else, really?
Oh yeah, man. What's next? What's next for you? Or what are some good things coming up? We need some self promo here.
Oh yeah, we do need some self promo.
Yeah, for
So
you.
yeah, so this might actually be the last episode that I record before officially launching the podcast,
Okay.
Fight Monster Show. So that's exciting. This
It's exciting.
podcast, but also the Fight Monsters concept, the organization has been a dream for many years. And I think officially we've been an entity for a bit over a year now, but it's really just taken on legs recently. So my dream is really to continue getting to have really meaningful conversations and interactions with people who face monsters of all different shapes and different kinds, and really just being able to learn from people. And my goal with this podcast was really to interview 100 people in a year or two and just learn from all of them. And it just seemed like a really neat concept to get insights from that many people who face that many forms of adversity, and hopefully it'll make me a better and stronger person in the process. But that's something that I'm excited about because I really want to do something with that in the future. I got into my craft soda business because I had a passion for root beer, and I wanted to share that beautiful thing that I loved with the world. And I think there's something really great
Yeah.
about that. But in the process, I learned that there's something even deeper that I care about more than just showing the world something that I love, and that is talking about really, really hard things in life, and creating that bond and connection of knowing that we're all in this together. We can be very, very different people, but everyone's faced a monster, and there's something hard that we've all faced, and we can all grow and learn from the process. And I think there's real power in refusing to let a monster control your life and dictate who you will become. The power is in choosing to grow into a better and stronger person that you choose and you want as a result of that adversity. So I think that's what the next few years looks like. It's not a very specific answer to your question because there are a lot of
No.
unknowns. The immediate future is also me just getting healthier. I think the extent of the precursor to the show, my lawsuit, and just struggle with my small business for many years and some other monsters I was facing took a detrimental toll on my life, but especially on my health. And I've been trying to get back physically, but also, emotionally and mentally and spiritually, and trying to get healthy and reconnect, rediscover the person that I am, and kind of learn to like the person that I am, and live life in a way that no longer has this weight hanging over me, and just be light and free. So that's
No.
something I'm experiencing more and more, and I'm excited about more of that in the future.
That's real, man. That's real. Thank you for sharing and being open. Like that's like your health is your wealth, and that's
Mm.
I maybe we need to join we need to maybe I don't know create a group because I also need to work on all kinds of health, mental
Yeah,
health, physical health. So
that's right.
yeah,
It's
I'll definitely if you need somebody on that journey with you, I'll be there for you.
Yeah, man. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Yeah, it just as a quick other note. I've realized how isolating adversity, monsters, hard things can be, and that the loneliest times been my life have been the times that I was going through the hardest things, and it's because I self isolated. There are people who love me who wanted to help, and I was either afraid or embarrassed or just didn't have it in me to reach out to them, and it was hard to accept when they reached out to me. And that's something that I want to get better at, but also just want to help other people talk about and learn about. Is we don't need to isolate ourselves when things get really hard. That's when we need to lean on friends, and that's when you can tell who your true friends are, when they actually will be there for you and love you and support you in the way that you need. So
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
You're not lying about that.
Yeah, that's right. All right, man. Anyway, great talking to you. Look forward to having some cold root brewskis sometime soon, maybe.
Are you still making them?
I'm not currently making product by hand. I've got, I'm still selling off some inventory I have, and I have enough to last me for a little while. And so I need to navigate when the next production run is, or if maybe for a while I just keep it real small and go back to the the micro approach, small batches, and maybe I'll just drink a whole lot myself with my friends. I don't know. That chapter is yet to be uncovered, so we'll see.
Fight Monsters is a non-profit public advocacy organization that promotes the awareness of bullying in all forms.
Conditioned to make your mental beat like a drum with a piece of the heart and a piece of the chest, and he can't take no more. I fight against bullying in all forms, all forms, all forms. Fight monsters, fight monsters. You're listening to the Fight Monsters Podcast.